Guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. You know, I have a lot of different passions and hobbies out there, and many of them you have come along with the journey and experienced them with me. Things like gaming, I love video games and playing them and talking about them, and gardening. For those of you that were really in the early days of my channel, there was some gardening content. Unfortunately, when I moved into a place, first an apartment, the high-rise apartment, there's no gardening there. And then we moved to a place here that's sort of like a townhouse kind of a thing. But the outside is not at all conducive for gardening. We're not allowed to touch anything out there. So I haven't had any chance to do any gardening, and it's been terrible, and I missed gardening greatly and terribly. But once we get into a place that has a place to do gardening, you're guaranteed there's going to be more gardening content on this channel. But I have other passions as well. Another big passion of mine is reading. I'm sure some of you might have seen on my bookshelves here. Now, most of these are for my work and science textbooks and things. But I have a lot of chapter books and a lot of different types of nonfiction that I read as well, and fiction books that we read here at the home. I'm also extremely passionate about board games. I love board games. My wife and I bought a whole bunch of board games. I've inherited a bunch of board games from my family when I was a child growing up. I love board games, and maybe we'll talk about board games sometime as well, because they're really fun, and I have a lot of cool memories with board games. And something about this channel, as people have noticed, and a couple people have commented before, a lot of stories and how everything has a story. And that's important to me, because those memories bring back nostalgia, they bring back fun. And a part of the reason why I do all of this and giving stories is only for myself, but for you guys to enjoy if you enjoy them, and hopefully pass on the bug and get excited about something. But it's also for me, when down in the years from now, I can look back at some of this and remember things that I might have forgotten, some details, and also for my kids even, so they can see this, and grandkids eventually when that happens. But I also have a hobby, not just with those board games, for example, but I'm really passionate about card games, and have been a big card game fanatic collector for various types of card games. And it all started a long time ago, back when I was about maybe 6 or 7, thereabouts. My dad had shown me his baseball collection, and he had a huge collection of cards, and I remember going through them and thinking this is really cool, and how I wanted to do it too. And I remember at the time Pokemon was coming out, and I was very interested in the animated series that was on. I used to run home from school just to watch it in time, but I was really excited about it. And I remember then collecting the Pokemon trading cards, and thought that was absolutely fantastic. I never played it though properly. I just collected the cards because I liked the pictures and the arts, and there were some really cool arts that people developed for these Pokemon, and I really liked it. And then I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! And that was one where I not only watched the TV show, but I also played the game. And that was in part because on our street, everybody collected Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. My sister was into Yu-Gi-Oh! So we all got together, had tournaments, and it was really fun. But that's not the card game I'm talking about for today. Today, we're going to talk about Magic the Gathering, and how I got into Magic the Gathering. As you can see behind me, I have a bunch of these deck boxes that came in fat packs, as they're called, to store my cards in. And I have spent, probably thousands of dollars now on cards over the years. And I want to tell you, how did I get into Magic the Gathering? Because I didn't start Magic the Gathering until much later in life, like in university. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is that in my street, nobody ever, where I grew up, never played that kind of stuff. You heard of Dungeons and Dragons, but that was about it. And I did play some of that as well as a kid, but there wasn't a lot of it. And you would have been made fun of. I grew up in an area of town where there was more tough people and a lot more sports and things. So even though video games for the most part were okay and it becoming to be more acceptable, a lot of these other types of nerd culture, if you will, were not acceptable at the time. So I never got into Magic the Gathering because nobody else around me had it. And so I went through high school not knowing about it. I went through my undergrad not knowing about it. And it was when I started my master's degree. I was in the same lab that I did my 4th year's honors thesis in, and I was trying to sort of continue that research and the findings that I had in my 4th year project for my undergrad. And because I already was familiar with the material and the experiment and the procedures that I was doing, I jumped right in. And the first thing I wanted to look at was gene expression of an enzyme that was within one of my bacteria that helped promote plant growth under stressful conditions. To do that, I had to go to another lab on campus to analyze that gene expression, and because we didn't have the equipment in our lab. And that's where I got to meet these 2 senior PhDs in that lab. They were really awesome people. And, we were just talking, because I was sitting there, learning the rules of their lab and how to run their equipment and so on. And we started talking about, projects and science and philosophy and so on. And they said, you know what? There's this meeting that's happening. It's called Skeptic Society. You think you would like it? Come on down, try it out, meet some people, and I think you'd enjoy it based on the stuff that you're talking about, the things that you're interested in. We think you should do that. And I said, yeah, you know what? Why not? I mean, it'd be nice to, learn and be with people who are more of like mind and learn some science and discuss things in that manner. But we went down there, and I arrived early because I was scared and nervous a little bit. And it was a coffee shop that we went to, and where they all hung out and met. And I remember walking in, and I seen them sitting there playing this card game. And I thought, what on earth are they doing? So I walked over, said hi, and Matt sat down, and I watched them play this game. And they said, yeah, this is called Magic the Gathering. And I said, oh, I never heard of it. And so they were briefly, very quickly, so in the middle of a game, briefly described what it was and how to play. So I just essentially watched them play this game. And it was difficult to grasp just by watching. Some things you could figure out, some game mechanics just by looking. But there was a lot of nuance and a lot of rules, it seemed, a lot of like card mechanics and things that you really had to know. So I was a little bit, taken aback at the complexity here with this card game. So, after many matches watching, I decided to ask some questions, and we talked more about the game, and then they kind of got me hooked, mainly on the lore, because the Magic the Gathering cards have different planes or worlds that you can see and visit, and each of these worlds has lore that come with it and all this sort of information, and that captivated me. As someone who played D&D, storytelling captivates me, and so I was immediately drawn into the fact that there's these different planes and worlds you can go to, and that I was a planeswalker, so I could cast spells and unleash, creatures that I've come across, and I thought this was so cool. So after our meeting, and we spent most of the night just discussing this, and I didn't really mingle too much, unfortunately, because I was so invested into this new game. The next day, so I went home, it was quite late. The next morning I got up, I couldn't stop thinking about this card game. And I said, this game is really fun. I can't believe, I got to experience this. I want to play it myself and learn more about it. So I got up, went to work that day, did some research in the lab, and I finished a little early. And I remember so clearly, I hopped on the bus and I was going home, and I was thinking, where around me are card stores, or where can I buy Magic the Gathering cards, or just look at the prices, because they had told me they could be quite expensive. So I was looking around, looking for local game card stores and so on, and I found one. And it's a funny story about this place. I found one. It was a little store, and I kid you not, this store was like sandwiched. It looked like a shipping container, but it was the size of this store, essentially. And it was sandwiched between this ginormous department store called Giant Tiger. is, for those who are not in Ontario or in Canada, it's like a store for discounted stuff that's cheaper than, for example, Walmart and so on. And it's a good store. I actually like it. There's some good stuff there, good products there as well. But yeah, so there was this big department store there called Giant Tiger. And then on the other side of the store was a massive restaurant. So in between there's this narrow little store. And so I went in and I came across this old lady who ran the store. And her and her sons were running the store. And she was at the counter, and I, was looking around at the different stuff, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, obviously. There were like little figurines and collectibles, and then of course there was the Magic the Gathering section. And I was looking at it and looking at the prices, and there was some very expensive stuff that was there. And she came by, and I was talking with her and how I had just discovered this and so on, and she was wonderful. She gave me a couple of intro battle packs, and she gave me a whole bunch of cards that they just had around that were, they're obviously, bulk cards, and gave those for free. And then she gave me a couple of commander decks, so pre-constructed commander decks. And commander, for those of you who have no idea, is just a different format in the game of Magic the Gathering. There's different formats. And one of them is called Commander, and they come out with, Wizard of the Coast comes out with packs that they pre-make and pre-assemble so that you can buy them. And you can just play them out of the box, so to speak. And some of them aren't too bad, but she had a couple and she threw those in. And then she said, you know what, you're also going to want to probably buy a booster box. And I went, oh no, that's quite expensive. And she plopped down the booster box. And at the time, I came in at a great time to Magic the Gathering because this was the introduction into the cons of Tarkir playing. So a new rotation was coming in, and a new set and a new series. So I was coming at a great time as this was sort of launching. And she said, I'll give you one of these booster boxes from the new set. And all I could see was dollar signs because I seen the packet. It said it was $139. And I thought, Canadian, that's Canadian. And I thought, oh my goodness, and you start racking up all the other prices. Even though she was giving me some bulk cards for free, I was like, oh my goodness, this is like, $300-400. I don't have that kind of money. Because she knew I was new to this format, she said, you know what, I'll give you the whole thing for, I think it was $160 or something, the whole thing. Which is a steal, because the two Commander decks in and of themselves are about $60 here in Canada. So you're getting away with a lot of stuff. The battle packs, I think, were like 18 something. So yeah, I was getting away with a lot of stuff for a very reasonable price. So I was really excited. I paid that and came home with big boxes and bags full of stuff, and I just spent the entire afternoon just going through and opening all the packets and having a wonderful time. Because at that point, I hadn't opened a card pack in probably about 8 years, and I was like, the smell and the sort of that fresh cardstock smell, and it's exciting, and it really invigorated me. I remember having such a great nostalgic trip opening these cards, and it was really fun. And so that took me all afternoon, the rest of the day and the evening, and I was just like, couldn't believe, and I was learning the mechanics, reading the cards, every description, and trying to understand them and looking things up online as I was trying to figure this game out. And so what I did is I decided, I'm going to make a deck called a standard deck. And a standard deck in Magic and other formats is there are a certain number of I guess you'll call them series or packs of cards that you can use in that deck to construct certain I don't know what you want to call them, certain series, a number of sets, and a certain number of sets you can use to make that your deck out of, pick cards out to make your deck. And as new sets come out, older sets get taken off, and you can't use those cards that were in those sets anymore, so you're always rechanging your cards. So I didn't really know that at the time too much. I thought, it's not that bad. I'll just make a standard deck with the cards I have. And so the very first deck I had made, I'm going to bring it out here, is my Warriors deck. And so I got it all wrapped up here is my Warriors deck. And so I went through and I made this beautiful Warriors deck, and I was so excited about this standard deck. And so I used it and brought it to the next meeting that we had for skeptics. And I was like, hey guys, look what I got. And I told them what was going on and how I made this deck and how I wanted to try it. And they were super excited because there's somebody else that they hooked on to Magic the Gathering. So right off the bat, we battled and had fun. And I lost every single time because I was new and still learning. And they were teaching me and trying to help me through things. And then they introduced me to this format called Commander. And I briefly mentioned that there was decks that you could buy that were pre-made. And all that Commander is a format that allows you to use any cards from most of the Magic the Gathering's history. And the reason why they introduced me to it was because they told me that Standard, once some of the cards I was using will be leaving relatively soon. And so if I ever wanted to play Standard again, I couldn't use those cards. I had to replace them with other cards. And they said it could be quite expensive. And I thought, oh yeah, I don't know if I want to do that. And they said, yeah, they don't like doing that either because, you make these things, you put your heart and soul into these cards and these decks, and many of these decks are reflections of yourself, as I've also found out by battling different people. And so they've said, hey, this teaches this new format, Commander, you have a commander, a general, so he's the leader of your deck, and you have cards that all fit within the same category or color as your commander. And what I mean by that is each card has a color. So you see here, it's green. It's got a tree on there. I don't know how autofocus is going to be. There's a little tree. And so if he was my commander, let's say, I would, and he was like a legendary creature, I could build a deck around him, and every card in the deck would also have to have the same mana or color, which is green in this case. So I went back and thought about this new format. I'm like, oh my goodness, and I was thinking about it. And then I bought some more cards as well as at that store that I bought and got all that free stuff. So they made their money back, guaranteed. They lost money in the beginning, but they made it back when I came back, and I think that was their plan. But I went back there, I bought a whole bunch of more cards, and I made this my first ever Commander deck. And this deck has been refined. I continue to refine it as I can play other people and realize weaknesses, and I swap cards in and out now for different types of decks. But it's my very first one, and it's very special to me. And it is my dragon deck, and the commander is right here. Beautiful dragon of storms there. So I was really excited, and so I built this deck, and I remember facing them next time at the Skeptic Society meeting, and I lost, and I kept losing, and I kept changing cards, and I kept losing, until one day, months after building this first Commander deck, finally I got to know my play group and what sort of cards they were playing and the formats and the things they were doing, and I altered my deck and kept altering until one day I beat them all. And I was so impressed. They were excited. I remember everybody cheered because they realized, hey, you won finally, and you've now caught it, and you've now learned, and you're going to do so much better. And it was a lot of fun. So I have such great memories of that time, and these people who introduced me, these PhDs in that lab, they became my friends. We still talk. They're great people, and that's such a great time. They hooked me into that Magic the Gathering, and then I, because I got hooked, ended up one day going through my cards in front of my brother-in-law. So this is now like a year after being introduced, and I'm starting to amass quite a card collection at that point. And I was going through them, and he happened to come over with my sister, and he's seen me playing and going through this, and he says, is that Magic the Gathering? And I said, yeah. And I just never thought to even ask him because, he was not into that kind of thing, or seemed to be interested in that kind of thing. But he was, and he had told me that in the past he had dabbled in it a bit, and that I look at them too, and then once he started looking at them, and I let him, I think, borrow one of my decks to play just for fun, hooked. And then he went out that same weekend or whatever and bought cards himself, and then I remember for the longest time him and I would just meet up and just, he'd come over all the time to play and just battle each other. And we always brought our cards everywhere we went, if we knew we were going to each other's houses, just because we had fun. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a good bonding moment too, because it was fun, something we had in common besides video games. So we really enjoyed it. And he got the bug and loved it and still has it, and he has a large collection as well. Fast forward a bit, and then I met my wife, right? So we were going out, and one day she wasn't feeling very well, and I brought over these cards to her house and said, hey, you know, maybe this might help cheer you up. I think you might like it. And at first she was like, yeah, this is confusing. And I hear that a lot when people first see them. The mechanics can be confusing in the beginning because there's a lot of complexity, a lot of card and gameplay mechanics that you have to really understand when you're playing it. But I find the best way to do it is just to grab a pack and just start playing. And you learn along the way, especially if the person you're facing is patient and knows this is your first time and you're learning. And I think that's like with anything out there, be patient and you'll get it. But it's really fun. And my wife got hooked. And then she would encourage me to buy more and more cards. And so eventually we have a cupboard back there that is just packed full of cards. I have binders upon binders upon binders and shoe boxes and boxes like this and cards just lying in stacks. It's just ridiculous. I have cards all over the place and I'm still going through them, organizing them, because you get so many cards. And she was like, get more, and I want to build my own. And then we ended up amassing this collection. And then she had a whole bunch of decks that she's built that she wanted to play, and we would have tournaments, and it was a lot of fun and a lot of great memories. One of my favorite memories, actually with my wife, is we were going to the hospital because my wife was about to give birth to my first daughter, and she's like, don't forget the magic card, don't forget the magic cards, because I'll play that to keep my mind off while in labor. So we brought out our cards, and it was funny, we never played them because my wife ended up going not only to labor but delivering very quickly. Usually it takes a lot longer for your first baby, but my wife was very, very short, like I think it was like 5 hours, 5-6 hours, which is great. And there's a video I think somewhere on there. It wasn't very long at all, like actively in labor. So we didn't get to play our card game. So anyways, but we still play them now. So yeah, are you guys interested in cards and card games? Have you played Magic the Gathering? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And share your card memories. How did you get into your various card games? I might talk about other ones like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Down the road. But I have like thousands and thousands of cards here. You know, maybe one day I can go through some of them and talk about more stories that I've had with these cards. You know, like I have so many cards here, you know, like it's ridiculous. And decks that I've built. So, you know, a lot of fun. Like I really enjoy it. Magic the Gathering is a great thing. If you've never played it before, give it a try. If you think you might like it, you know, try it. But yeah, no, I've had a lot of fun. So with that, guys, I hope you guys take care. And I hope you guys are doing well. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay, bye-bye.